Hello, everyone. Welcome to Durrett's Take. As a starters, congrats to the Philadelphia Eagles for winning the Super Bowl. Obviously, my pick was way off there. I did not expect it to be a blowout, but I knew Philly had a very deep roster and a very good team. So I'm not shocked by the fact that they won. Um, so we'll see what happens throughout the off season to see what it looks like going into next season. But for this podcast, I want to go over my NBA trade deadline kind of like takeaways, like grades, like who's a winner, who's a loser. Um, and for starters, let's get started. In alphabetical order. I'm going to start with the Atlanta Hawks. So they traded away their wing DeAndre Hunter to the Cavs, and then they traded Bogdanovich to the Clippers. And in return, they got Karis LeVert, George Niang um, from the Cavs, and then they got picks, for Bogdanovich. Um, for me, this is a I feel like Atlanta's one of the losers at the trade deadline because these moves don't help you get better, obviously. And if you are going to do like a soft take, it seems like you would want to get rid of Trae Young so you can fully start that rebuild. Um, so that, but that's just me. Boston, they didn't really do much. They trade away a bench warmer, James Spring, who's a good defender, but bench warmer, and then a second round pick, and then they do the second round pick swaps. So I'm just gonna get that in A. And then Brooklyn didn't make any trades at all, so that's in A. And then Charlotte, they acquired center, Joseph Nurkic from the Suns and a first round pick from the Suns, and then they trade away Cody Martin, Vasilije Mishik, and then a second round pick. To me, this is a loser trade because getting Nurkic doesn't do you any good at all. And then they try to get rid of Mark Williams to the Lakers. Apparently, that trade was instigated by the Hornets, supposedly not the Lakers. So they try to get rid of him, and because of the trade game rescinded due to failing physical, that's not happening. So that's why I would say is a loser. Now, the one good thing from the trade is that, Cody Martin and Mishik, which I mentioned earlier, those are both on 1 year deals. So you're getting rid of them out of house, so you save on cap space and all that. And you get a first round pick, from the Suns. So that part of it is good, but overall, I still think they're a loser. And then Chicago, they traded away Zach LaVine to the Kings, and in return they got Kevin Herter, and then Zach Collins, Trey Jones from the Spurs, and just one 2025 first round pick. So I'm going to call this trade loser because I feel like they should have gotten more than one first round pick, and and then also they didn't trade away um, Vucevic, which they were trying to do, and they didn't and decided to extend Lonzo Ball, which didn't make any sense, but they didn't make those moves as well to make it a full on rebuild. So that was just kind of questionable there. So I'm just gonna give it a loser grade. Cleveland, they got, as I mentioned earlier, they got the Hunter from the Cavs and pick swaps. I have this a clear winner because over like the last month or so, DeAndre Hunter has been on fire from deep. He's been averaging like around 20 points a game. He's a good 3-and-D guy. He's improved over the course of his career. And if you're the Cavs, like Karis LeVert, like he's had his moments, but he's kind of washed his son. And Niang's always, you know, there's always a ceiling with him as a backup. Forward. So just it makes sense to get Hunter. So good for them. Because you're Cleveland, you need more oomph in order to match up with Boston. So, and then Dallas, I'm saying this is a loser trade, um, mainly because they did not get enough back in the Luka trade for me. It's like if they would have gotten all three of the Lakers first round picks instead of just one of them, this could be more of a winner trade. But the problem with it is that you also get you get Anthony Davis, who's obviously older than AD and is now hurt for at least a month. So that in the end makes it a bad trade there. And they also got rid of Quentin Grimes, who I thought was a good piece in the Mavs for Caleb Martin, who's injured right now. Now, if Caleb Martin comes back and he puts on a show, then it looks like that trade was successful. But I'm just surprised that they did that swap because it didn't really make much sense. Um, the only way you could argue this for like a winner trade is that Max Christie, since he's been in the Mavs, has been an excellent addition for them. Now I would try to get an Austin Reeves, but getting Max Christie is definitely better than getting Dalton Connect. No offense to Connect, but the fact that they got Christie was very good there. But again, it's just hard to win when you give it win the trade, fully when you get rid of Luka. Denver didn't make any trades. Some could argue they should have made a trade, um, but they have an A grade there. And then Detroit, they acquired Dennis Schroeder, um, who was traded to the Jazz and then got bought out. So that way he can then go to the Detroit. And then they traded obviously for Quentin Grimes, like I just mentioned earlier, and they also traded for KJ Martin for Philly. Um, and then they got a second round pick, and then they don't have to give up anything. So I have Detroit being a winner because Dennis Schroeder's an excellent backup point guard for Kate Cunningham. He can come in and steer the ship while Cunningham's on the bench. And then Quentin Grimes, like I said earlier, is a good guard. It makes all the sense in the world that the Pistons want him. And then Golden State, they obviously got Jimmy Butler, and then they gave up Andrew Wiggins and Kyle Anderson, and then Dennis Schroeder and a first round pick. I have this as a winner train because while I don't think this move helps them become a championship contender, they still will remain relevant and they can still try to get the most out of old Curry and old Draymond Green. Because the Warriors just had to do something, otherwise you just do a rebuild at that point. So I feel like this was the best move they could make under circumstances as they try to get all these bunch of different all-stars and it wasn't working. So, and then Houston, they got James Springer from the Celtics and Cody Zeller, backup center, and then they got multiple second-round picks and pick swaps in the second round. And didn't have to give up anything, but I feel like this is a loser of a trade because if you're Houston, you need like one big move to kind of put you over the hump, and these moves don't do that. Indiana didn't make a trade at all. The Clippers, they got Bogdanovich from the Hawks, and then they got 3 second-round picks, and then they also got Drew Eubanks from the Jazz. And then they lose Terrence Mann and Bones Highland, who went to the Hawks, and then they got rid of Mo Bamba, who went to the Jazz, and Tucker as well. So I have this as a winner trade. Because while I don't like giving up your 3D guy Terrence Mann, who's a really good defender, I do like that either the Drew Eubanks pickup because they can use some more depth at the forward position. And Bogdanovich, is a good scorer. Because while Terrence Mann can score, he's more just a defender. Now we'll see that of losing that key defender, it cost them in the long run. But I feel like what they gained was just a little bit more than what they lost, barely. But so I have them barely as a winner. And then the LA Lakers, obviously they're winning for getting Luka. You can argue they're a loser for not getting that Mark Williams deal done for the failed physical, but because that's going to cost them for winning a championship at least this year. But over in the long run, it's obviously a big win for the Lakers to get Luka. And then Memphis, they acquired Marvin Bagley III and John Davis and a couple second round picks, and then they sent Marcus Smart off. I would say this is a loser trade because even though Marcus Smart is not what he once was, he's a good veteran to have on that team to help them in their playoff run and all that. And Bagley and Davis are not there going to do anything to help with that. Then Miami, they got Andrew Wiggins and Kyle Anderson, a first round pick from the Warriors to lose. So I have them as a winner because since you're in Miami and everyone knew Jimmy Butler wanted to leave, you weren't going to get a lot for him. So I feel like under the circumstances, this is the best you could do. Milwaukee, they got Kyle Kuzma from the Wizards, Kevin Porter Jr., center Jericho Sims, a backup center for the Knicks, and then they got rid of Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, Marjon Bergkamp, Patrick Baldwin Jr., pick swap. I would say this is a winner because Kyle Kuzma is a nice piece since Middleton's old and washed up and all that. And then Kevin Porter Jr., he can be a good addition. And then Jericho Sims is another good addition to have more youth at the center position behind Brook Lopez. And then Minnesota, they didn't make any trades, so it's NA there. New Orleans, they shipped off Brandon Ingram to Toronto, and they lost Dalen Tice as well to the Thunder. And then they got Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk, and 1 first round and 1 second round pick from the Raptors. If you're New Orleans, this is a winner trade because obviously Brandon Ingram, he's not going to do any good in the long run going forward, so it's better to ship him off while you can and continue to tank. The Knicks, they trade away Jericho Sims, as I mentioned, and they get point guard DeLon Wright. Honestly, it's NA because while DeLon Wright's a nice veteran backup point guard, it's like nothing's going to move the needle there in that regard. Oklahoma City, they got center Dale Tice as a backup center, a second round pick, 2023 second round pick, and they lost nothing, so that's kind of an NA there. Doesn't do really anything good. Orlando, they didn't make any trades at all. One could argue they could have, but they didn't make one, so it's an NA. Philadelphia, they traded they traded Caleb Martin, as I mentioned earlier, to the Mavs, the second round pick, and they also got rid of KJ Martin as well, and point guard Reggie Jackson, the first round pick. And then they got point guard Jared Butler in the second, fourth round picks. So I have this as a loser trade because the fact that they had to give up a first round pick to unload a player like a Reggie Jackson, like, that doesn't make any, or a Caleb Martin, that's not really a trade that makes any sense. And so, yes, they got a bunch of second round picks, but what would you do, Phoenix, they acquired Cody Martin and Midgets, as I said, from the Hornets, and then they got rid of Nurkic. So, in the one way they're winners because they've been trying to get rid of Nurkic, and they finally were able to get rid of him because they want him out, since Budenholzer didn't believe in him. So in that aspect's the win. But otherwise, obviously, the moves don't make anything to help you get better as a team. And then you add on to the fact that KD was mentioned, the trade talks didn't happen, so now you got that aspect to deal with for the rest of the season. Portland didn't make a trade at all, so NA there. And then Sacramento, they acquired Zach LaVine from the Bulls and Onis Valanciunas from the Wizards, and then they got rid, obviously, De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter, Cindy Cisco, and multiple second-round picks. I have this as a lose-it trade. Because while LaVine is, under the circumstances, LaVine's a good addition you can get for losing De'Aaron Fox, and then Valanciunas is obviously a good backup center to have on the team. It's just like if you're Sacramento, you need to really look at the mirror and kind of start the tanking process, because now you're just basically the same spot where you were. You're just a middle of the pack team. You're not going to make a championship or anything like that with this roster. And might as well you should tank. San Antonio, they got obviously De'Aaron Fox, and then they got Patrick Baldwin Jr. for the Bucks, and then they got rid of Zach Collins, Trey Jones. This is obviously a winner of a trade, because while it's not going to help them this year, it will help them in the long run once they make even more moves to try to make it, try to create a good roster around Wemby. Toronto, they got Brandon Ingram, they got James Wiseman as well, they got PJ Tucker, second round pick, and then they obviously lost Bruce Brown, Kyle Olynyk, one first round pick, one second round pick, and Davion Mitchell. I have this as a winner of a trade just because Brandon Ingram, as a Toronto, you're not going to be championship contending anytime soon, so you kind of need some box office appeal, and Brandon Ingram can at least provide us. He's a good scorer. Utah, they got a few backup players and some second round picks, just acquiring those more picks, and they didn't lose a lot of people. Just Drew Eubanks, one of the only people that lost. So that's kind of like NA there because they didn't do anything. And then last spot is Washington. They acquired Chris Middleton from the Bucks, AJ Johnson from the Bucks, Marcus Smart, as I mentioned, from the Wizards, Reggie Jackson, Cindy Cisco, and then a 2020 first round pick, another first round pick swaps, and then multiple second round picks, and all they had to lose was Valanciunas, Butler, and then some other second round picks. So this is a winner trade because obviously Wizards, you need to rebuild. So you could take on Middleton for this year and then get rid of him, and then you could take on Mark Smart for this year and then get rid of him, and save on some more cap space to go make other moves later on in the free agency. So a winner of a trade there. So now I will go over my updated NBA projections, post All-Star break. So I still have I have Cleveland 1, Boston 2, New York 3, Indiana 4, Milwaukee 5, Detroit 6, Miami 7, Orlando 8, Atlanta 9, Toronto 10, Philly 11, Chicago 12, Brooklyn 13, Charlotte 14, Washington 15. So the top part kind of makes sense there. Cleveland, Boston, and New York are the three best teams. Indiana's been playing well recently. The Bucks, because of Giannis being hurt and because of them being old in general, they'll still be good, but I can kind of see them fading off. Detroit has been very positive. Not as good as obviously the top teams, but they're on the rise. I feel like they can avoid the play-in tournament. And then Miami, they've been making the play-in tournament years in a row, and with losing Jimmy Butler, I feel like that would be a best case scenario for them, is to make the play-in tournament once again. Orlando, I have them making the play-in tournament because they still got pieces, but because of all the injuries they had early on the season, that's what's kind of preventing them from avoiding the play-in tournament. And then the last two playoff spots are kind of hard because there's a bunch of teams that are not doing well right now that you can make a case for. I'm going to go with, the reason why I chose Atlanta is because they kept Trae Young, obviously, and Atlanta's a good offense. And then I chose Toronto because they've been playing a lot better as of late, because I thought they were going to be taken, and in the beginning of the season it did look like that, but now it looks like they're trying harder and all that. And the reason why I didn't have Philly at least in the play-in just because with Embiid being hurt and Paul George not playing well like he should be and all that, and he's going through some injuries as well, I just kind of giving up on them at this point. Okay, so now for the West, you got Oklahoma City 1, Memphis 2, Denver 3, Minnesota 4, Lakers 5, Houston 6, Clippers 7, Golden State 8, Sacramento 9, Dallas 10, Phoenix 11, San Antonio 12, Portland 13, New Orleans 14, and Utah last. So obviously the top teams, explain itself there. Minnesota, Lakers, Houston, Clippers, all kind of like around each other. I was just like a pure guess. I feel like Houston, is kind of showing regression, so I feel like they might continue to regress. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to regress to the play-in tournament, but I feel like they can avoid that barely. And then, um, as far as like the Golden State, Sacramento, Dallas, Phoenix, those four teams go, Golden State has an easier schedule going down the stretch that can help them get a higher seed there. And then as far as Sacramento, Dallas goes, I feel like they'll both kind of just do the best they can. Dallas just has too many injuries, in my opinion, to overcome, and Sacramento has a tight break over them. And then Phoenix, the reason why I have them as a team barely out is because I feel like I mentioned earlier, that whole trade of looking to trade KD and I feel like that can cause a whole rift, and that could potentially cost them. And the San Antonio, like I said, they just need to make a couple more moves this off season, to then be in playoff contention. So that's why I have there. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. Well, thank you very much for listening to my podcast today. Please subscribe to my channel, Turn About Me. Thank you very much, and y'all have a wonderful day.